In this episode, we're sharing 12 things we would do if we wanted to attract more leads from local businesses.
Welcome back to JFDI with the two Lauras. We talk about life as a freelance social media manager and share our 30 plus combined years of sales and marketing experience with you in our weekly podcast. The beauty of what we do as a freelance social media manager is that we can work with whoever we want, wherever they are in the world. But some of you prefer to work with businesses in your local area. So on today's podcast, we're sharing 12 tweaks we would make if we wanted to attract more local leads.
Can we just start this podcast out by saying that I have got the ick, like big time.
I knew you would.
And anyone who's been in our world for a while and has listened to the podcast for a long time will think, why on earth is Laura Moore recording this podcast? And if you are new here, let me explain why that is. It's because I refuse to work with any local businesses. I do not want to meet a client in Tesco's or, can you imagine going to the hairdresser and they're sitting next to you?
Oh.
I just... it fills me with dread. I do not ever want to work with a local client. I've had bad experiences, but that doesn't mean I don't have great strategies to share with you. So there we go. Moving on. I'll try not to ick myself out throughout this episode.
You'll be pleased to know that I did a lot of local work, so just listen to me and ignore more.
Okay, should I just go and get a cup of tea and you just crack on?
Yeah. Okay, all right. See you in a bit. Bye. Okay, right. So there's 12 things. We're going to whistle, whistle through them. We're going to go through them.
If you haven't got a pen or paper handy, don't worry. We've put all of these things into a blog for you. We'll make sure the link for that is in the show notes. But if you just go to thetwolauras.com/local, you'll be able to go straight there.
Nice. Get us.
Talk about organised.
So, because it does always worry me when we say get a pen and paper and people are driving at 70 miles an hour down the motorway.
Trying to pick up a dog poo. Yeah, great.
Okay, so number one, nice and simple. Although you'd be surprised by the amount of people who don't do this, is that you want to optimize your business pages. So that's whether that's your LinkedIn profile, your Instagram bio, your Facebook about section, whatever platform you're on. So you want it to be clear what your service is and who you're offering it to in terms of that location.
Yeah.
And obviously you want the usual strong, good CTAs, etc. But if they cannot see from your business page at a glance that you are trying to speak to your local county, town, city, whatever that may be, then that's an error.
Definitely.
That's a problem.
Yeah, 100%. And so, for example, if your bio usually says that you help gym owners, right? Change it so it says, I help gym owners in West Sussex to get more members. Right, immediately, West Sussex, brilliant. Don't know how many gyms there are in West Sussex, but I'm sure that's probably a great niche.
I know a few, actually, weirdly. Okay, the next thing, within that, is that you've updated your bio or your about section, but just have a think about those top pinned posts, if it's Instagram, or the one pinned post, if it's Facebook, or actually you can have a few featured posts now on Facebook, can't you? Anyway, the point being, make sure that that content speaks to your local area.
Yeah.
And we've come on to a little bit more specifically about the content in a little bit, but yeah, make sure that you want people at a glance to be able to comfortably know that, yes, this person is talking to me in West Sussex, Bromsgrove, wherever we are in the world. So just make it as clear as possible. So do yourself a little mini audit. Does my banner, if it's Facebook or LinkedIn, speak to the right people? Does the bio, does my top post, it's that kind of thing. Take your own audit and make that assessment. Is it clear?
Yeah, and it could be in those pinned posts that it's got West Sussex gyms on the graphic, or it could just be that there's a picture of Brighton Pier in the background. It's simple to do that, to call out local people.
Well, you ruined the number point.
Well, we'll get onto it and go over it again. I'm sure people have tuned out and then they'll tune back in.
How rude. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, this is something you can do off of social media, is go and pick up your local paper. Go and look at the notice boards. Go and look at the notice boards in the local gyms, in the local corner shop. Who is advertising? And then paying for that advertising, normally, maybe not notice boards, but certainly your local papers,
local radio
or the local
as well,
magazines, local radio. Yes, that's a very good one. Yeah. Who is investing in their marketing in those ways? Now, it may well be that is somebody who is investing because that's what works, and that's fine. There may be people who are investing because they don't know their arse from their elbow in terms of social media marketing and haven't known where to start. And then you appear, ta-da, and approach them and have that conversation with them. Like my first client, who is actually local, he's actually not local anymore, but not my first client, sorry, a client who came to me, not because I was actually local, that was just a coincidence, but he was spending £60,000 a year on print media.
Wow.
I know. And by the time,
when you say print media, you mean like leaflets going through people's doors, or
no, magazines, like adverts in magazines, very targeted magazines, but it was still a lot of money. So over time, I was able to build up that trust with him. He started putting more and more money into social media and paid ads as well, and then drastically reduced that paid budget. Not just for that reason, there were various other reasons why they pulled the print budget, but they reduced it right down. And that was just always what they'd done. They never knew any different. And he never really, at that point, the way that we're using social media was not good, and it wasn't having the desired effect, hence why they'd reached out to me. And it was only through me having a lot of repeated, to be fair, conversations with him about how social media worked, what his expectations should be, how paid ads work, what he could invest, what he could expect, all of those conversations, which, as I say, was repeated often. It was only then that he started to understand what the opportunity was available to him and then he shifted that budget. But it did take quite a long time. But there will definitely be, without doubt, people who are advertising the papers, paying for those adverts. And I've done social content back in the day, because I live by a pathway and there's a little forest.
Oh, we've talked about your big bush on this podcast before, Laura. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a big bush, and within that big bush is a pile of newspapers. And it still happens now. That I did that content on my socials probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's still, I see piles like the paper boy or whoever does the papers nowadays dump these papers. And I did a post on my socials saying, if you've advertised in the local, and I remember tagging them saying this is where your advertising budget is going in my big bush. And it's so true. Like you can pay to have an advert in a newspaper. It doesn't mean anyone's actually going to read the newspaper.
Yeah.
Whereas on social, for paid ads, you're not paying unless someone's seen it.
Yeah, very true.
Anyway, we digress.
Okay, number 3. Number 3 is one that I feel like we need to go into depth on this, because I feel like you can do this wrong really easily.
Yes. Okay. So my 3 words are not enough.
They're not enough in our podcast notes.
So I'm a big believer in building relationships on social media. I know it's just such an alien concept on social media to try to be social. And I think that some of the hardest ways is to start those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that is easiest, depending on your niche, is by flattery. It's by complimenting somebody. Now, it could just be that you post on there, you've been to a local nail person, maybe that's your niche, and you've had your nails done, and you could just comment and say, you know what, I've had a lovely experience. I love my nails. Now, that's a start. Or you could put something on your stories or post on your Facebook or what have you, tagging that brand, saying what I loved about them. But make it obviously marketing related, like what I loved about this, but what I love more is how their marketing appealed to me in this way, or whatever. So it is relevant to what you're doing. But if you flatter these people and you big them up, they want to share that. You know, so if you were to say, I love this business, I love how they've advertising this, or I've been to this business and I've done XYZ and they are brilliant and this is what I love about how their brand is, blah, 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 blah. They want, especially their competitors, to see that. So they'll share it and they'll like you for it.
Yeah.
And when you start, and then you can be chatting.
Yeah.
Then that conversation starts. And there's also more likely that they'll then share your content. So when it's that, you know, reciprocity, isn't it? That they'll then share something of yours, and then all the other people their competitors who follow them going, oh my God, that means blah, blah nail studio is using Laura Davis for their marketing. I'm going to go to Laura Davis too.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, especially in a local town, you know, it's like the jungle drums, isn't it?
I remember somebody did something like this a while ago. I can't remember who it is now. And they'd flattered a few different businesses in a post. And they said at the end something about that one of them, or maybe all of them, were their dream client. I'd love to work with them. And they did end up getting one of them as a client. I remember them sharing it in a group. I wish I could remember who it was.
Oh, yeah.
And they literally said, you know, that I'd love to work with this business. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I can remember that. And I've also remembered back in the day when I used to do the Meet the Social Pro campaigns, one of the prompts was, who is your ideal client? Like, create a post that talks about who your ideal client is and preferably tag them. And somebody did then, and they won that client.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love that.
But I think, as Laura alluded to, this can go terribly wrong in various ways. So it could be, for example, you tag a few different brands and actually those two brands hate each other. They're not going to share that post because they're not going to want that other business to get any eyeballs. Yeah. So do just be mindful of that, especially small town mentality.
Yeah.
But also it can come across as a bit sleazy, spammy, stalkery.
Yeah. If you're just putting up a post that is like, you might even have a photo of you standing outside the nail salon, right? But the post is about something totally random, not to do with the nail salon, but you tag them. Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, no. Like,
God,
that's
I hadn't
just
even
spam.
thought of that. Yeah.
It's just spam. It has to be related to them and, like you said, flattering them in some way, ideally.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just, why are you tagging me, for Christ's sake? I didn't want this notification. It's just annoying, you know, and it happens to us a lot. It's just annoying. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Don't do it. Especially now when tags go in your bloody DMs as well. It's really annoying. So definitely, err on the side of caution on that one. But you could each week do a highlight of what local businesses in Bromsgrove are nailing their social media marketing this week. And each week you highlight a business and go, what you loved about it.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to share that kind of shit because they'll be like really proud.
Totally. And you telling them that they're doing a good job isn't going to stop them from coming to you for more help. So don't start worrying about that.
But more importantly, if you tag the local greengrocers and say,
love a greengrocer.
Yeah, they've nailed it this week, and now all I want is to go and buy their melons. Like, they share that post. The greengrocer may never want they never want to outsource their social media. But the businesses who are following the greengrocers will go, oh, hang on a minute. Why is this person who's this person tagging people about their good marketing? Why is no one tagging me? They come and check you out. They realise that actually their social media is shit, and then they hire you.
And if that greengrocer sells out of melons that day and goes and tells their mate, someone tagged us on Instagram and we sold out of melons. Oh, who was it that tagged you? Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So just don't always think of the immediate result.
Yeah.
Think of the longer term knock-on approach. No, knock-on effect.
Use Laura Davis's melon strategy.
Yeah.
We'll trademark that later.
I'd love to see some posts about melons. Yeah. Yeah. Loveymelons.com.
Okay. Moving on. Number 4.
Okay. Now this is something that, hand on heart.
My ick radar is going right up.
To be fair. Same. And this is not something that I would ever. No, that's a lie. I have done. No, I have done. I was just going to say I would never do.
I have done too. I have done. The thought of doing it again now.
Yeah. And it's attending local business networking events.
I could just picture someone's listening to this thinking we're going to say something terrible, and then we've said networking events, and they're like, well, what's the problem here?
Yeah.
Come on, that was a bit dramatic.
Some people absolutely love networking events, and I'm here for that. Like, good on you. That is not me. Like,
we're just not very sociable.
Yeah, I don't really like being around people. I don't like having to get out of my pajama bottoms. I find it hard because I just think, say for example, okay, I'm going to drive. I've got to park. That's a fucking nightmare around here. I've got to pay to park around here. I've got to go to the networking event where I don't know who's going to be there, and they could all be. I could walk into a room with social media managers, which actually now that would be fun. But if I back in just my freelance head, that could be a disaster. Yeah. I could then have to awkwardly stand there for like an hour.
It's the small talk.
Yeah, make small talk, drink shit tea and coffee. They wouldn't be Diet Pepsi, so Laura would be like
Diet Pepsi? Who are you talking to?
Sorry, Diet Coke. And then you have to walk back to the car, get back in the car, get home, and actually what you could have just done is promoted something on your social media and sold something in that time. I just think it's and normally
but
to get any
put
work,
it on your list of things to do, because we're obviously selling the idea really well here.
No, but I do think it really depends where you are. And my notes on this is about due diligence beforehand. If you
you don't want to be in a room surrounded by hobbyists and MLMs.
Exactly. So have a better understanding of who, and you can normally these things have like a Facebook group where you can kind of get a feel for the types of people who go, and you can get a handle on that before you have to make a decision, because there's no point going if it's full of, like, as you say, like MLMs or something. But you may live in it. Like if I wanted to really go for it, I'd just go into Birmingham. It's only up the road. But that's quite I just don't want to.
Yeah.
But in some areas, therefore, some networking events are going to be really well worth your time. Others less so. So my point being, do your due diligence and just make sure that you get something out of it. But don't even get me started on having to pay. And these ones where they only allow one social media manager and you have to refer your leads onto all that. You don't need that. You don't need it. So please don't pay.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I don't know what number we're on now.
No,
I've lost track.
We're probably on about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on number 5. So this is about.
Hopefully, next time Laura writes a list of things for a podcast, she'll put numbers on the list.
I like to keep things a bit more.
Keep us on our toes.
On edge. So this is so Laura's kind of alluded to some of this, but optimizing your content to speak to your local area. So we've obviously covered your bio and your banner images, etc. But this is your everyday, well, not every day, however often you post content. So is there something you can put in your hook that is going to call out that local audience? Is there images that you can use? Because I always think images work so well in this instance. It's like you can, if you see a picture of somewhere you're going to stop.
It's a psychology, isn't it? It's a subconscious brain recognizing something. It's like if you saw somebody like a face that you stop scrolling. No matter who it is, if you recognize them, your thumb stops. And it's the same with a place.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on? Why is my high street here? Why is the local pub here? It does stop. Obviously, you've got to work hard to get them to actually read your content or what have you.
And it has to be something that is recognisable. It just can't be like a random
field
shop in the high street, unless it's a random shop in the high street that everyone in the town knows of. That's really recognisable.
Yeah, it can't just be Greggs, because everyone's got a Greggs. It can't just be cancer research, because everyone's got a cancer research.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's got to be identified.
It can't just be a random street. But if there's a street, like there's some very recognisable streets in Brighton, for example, no one else who doesn't go to Brighton a lot or live in Brighton would recognise them, but people who do would. So you just need to have that. It's the local knowledge.
Yeah, God, there's no streets in Bromsgrove that are identifiable. Maybe the roadworks, actually, that would identify people of Bromsgrove.
Well, I think that would probably identify most of the UK.
Well, but anyway. Anyway, I think we win on that at the moment. Anyway, Okay, so making your content speak specifically, and that goes, to be honest, that goes across the board for all social media managers. You should all be optimizing your content to speak to whoever it is that you want to. But in this case, obviously, we're talking about local businesses. So using the words of where you locally are, using the imagery, but also making sure that your caption is keyword optimized, making sure that you're using Bromsgrove, Brighton, West Sussex, wherever, whatever the terms that people might be looking for, because that will help your content in the long term.
Yeah. And also, I'm jumping down your list because I think it makes sense to talk about this now in terms of your hashtags in your content, being really strategic with that local hashtag strategy. So yes, you'll be saying things like Brighton in the caption for the SEO, but also using like your local hashtags. So, like your Brighton hashtags, your Manchester hashtags, whatever it is, so that is speaking and helping algorithms to understand, helping you to be discovered as well. So it's not just keywords. On the platforms that use hashtags, do that as well. And mix them. So they're not just, so for example, you're not just saying West Sussex businesses, you might also be saying Worthing businesses or Brighton businesses, or you might also be talking about the industry hashtags that are relevant as well. So you've got the industry and the niche and the locality, not necessarily in the same hashtag, but so that it's, you can be discovered.
Yeah, nice. I've just moved my list around, and I think it's through you then.
Because totally
actually, this next point I've moved up as well, because we're on the same theme of using your location tagging in your content. Now, I love this. I love looking at the map and looking at the content that people have tagged in local areas, especially if I'm going on holiday, I'm going somewhere new, I'm looking for somewhere. I am all for the location tagging. Yeah. So people need to be doing it. Full stop.
Yeah. And don't think about it in a short term, if I tag this, I'm going to immediately get loads of people locally. Like, this is like a long-term strategy too, isn't it? Because like you say, people go and search in those locations when they're looking for something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a brilliant way for you as a business. So if you're thinking of your proactive engagement and you're thinking, who can I go and chat to? Go and find your location tag and go and engage with all the businesses. You may find businesses on there, which I suspect you probably will, that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and create content telling people to use the geotagging, because then you'll be able to find them.
Yes, nice. Making sure that you use the geotag on that as well. And also, this is something that I just don't think, I've never heard anyone talking about, but looking at the location-specific Reels feed. And engaging with those pieces, because the people who are already kind of doing content, it's going to be easier to convince them than the people who aren't even on social media.
Yeah, 100%.
Go and engage with them, flatter them, be nice about them, share them, promote them. All of those things, or just say hi as another local business. But yeah, the location Reel feed is just a gold mine, I think. Although around here it's kind of all news about people being stabbed and stuff, but it's still worth scrolling.
Stay on top of local news at the same time. I mean, yeah, great.
Win-win.
Okay, I've totally lost track of numbers. So moving on, website. If you want to attract local people, you definitely need to optimize your website, and you should be optimizing your website for search anyway, regardless of who it is you want to attract. But if you are optimizing for local people, you definitely want to be including those local keywords in your SEO. So when you are writing blogs, for example, it's not just about Reels tips for beauty businesses, it's Reels tips for business-based beauty businesses, and it's really specific on where they're at. And so you're not just doing it in the hook of like they're based in Brighton, maybe you're putting it in the intro. Again, the people who are in Brighton, and this is what we would do if we were recording a reel in Brighton. Here's some examples of some reels that I've shot in Brighton, and you're saying the words regularly throughout that piece of content to get it to be discovered.
If you can do case studies and have case studies on your website from local businesses, even if you're not niche specific in terms of the industry, but you just work with local businesses, it creates trust when people go, oh, look, there's that business there in Bromsgrove too. I really like them. Oh, and it's nice. It's reassuring them that, they've used this social media marketer. That means I'm safe to do so too. And I think the trust that builds is so worthwhile. And I don't think social media marketers are using case studies enough.
Agree.
On their website, but equally they're not thinking about what they're trying to achieve with those case studies. Mm-hmm. And if attracting local businesses is high on your wish list, then having local based businesses as your case studies should be the majority, I would say.
Yeah. And also, like you were talking before about the content where you're flattering the companies and you're talking about what they're doing well, that would make an amazing blog. You could have a great series about local businesses and what they're doing to attract people, because that is great for SEO, but it's also likely that they're going to share it. And you could even interview people and ask them, what are you doing? I'd love to feature you on my website. Yeah. They're going to want the SEO juice too.
And then you can give those businesses some tips that you also obviously include in your blog, so they get something off the back of it. They get some advice from you in return for having some intel.
And this isn't just for local businesses. This could be for any niche. Well, but for local businesses, it's great because you can just sprinkle that town throughout the whole blog.
Yeah.
So love that one.
Okay, so next is using groups on social media. So we're talking predominantly Facebook and LinkedIn groups here, aren't we? But this is something that I think is a no-brainer for local businesses. It's harder, I think, when you're not looking for clients in local groups is easier, I think, than any other group. But I think getting in there, getting to know everybody, but not in like a spammy way, not going in there going, hi, I'm blah, blah, and I'm your social media, like all the posts that we would decline from the hub.
Yeah.
And just be really helpful, reply to the comments, position yourself as the go-to. Like there's one local group here for me, which is full of business owners, and there's one woman who constantly gets tagged. She's like the go-to social media person. It used to be me, may I add, but obviously I've
retired.
Stopped doing stuff. I've retired.
From Facebook groups.
Yeah. But she's replaced me. And people tag her, you want to become that person. And sometimes it can be difficult because if there's already someone there who's a kind of established as the go-to social media guru for that local area, it can be hard to tap into that. But be really specific, maybe have a bit of a focus. Maybe you only talk about reels, maybe become...
Or just be the first person to answer.
Yeah.
Just get there quicker. Do a Laura Moore, turn on notifications, make sure you are the first person to answer, and soon you'll be the person who gets tagged, as long as you're giving good advice. But I think this definitely is, it's important you're in the right groups. You don't want to be in the groups where everyone's just posting sales posts and, they're not the right groups. The groups where people are having conversations is where you're going to find that this is useful, not the ones where they're just posting random links.
Yeah, and I think this goes without saying, but like your networking events, that due diligence, just check, these are hobby people who are just doing people's, nails on a Friday afternoon, or are these like established businesses? And it does obviously depends what your goal is. Like obviously I did a lot of local based networking normally in groups rather than face to face, because I did a lot of local workshops and training face to face. So those small businesses were absolutely perfect. But if you're looking for the more established businesses, they're not necessarily, they might be, but they're not necessarily going to be in there. So do just check, is this the right group for you to be spending time in? Because time is money.
Before we move on to the next one, I know we've overwhelmed you with a lot of things now. Don't forget, we've put this all in a blog for you. So go to the twolauras.com/local to go and get a recap on all of this. And we'll make sure that the link for that is in the show notes. But there's only a couple more. So what's the next one?
So the next one, we kind of actually covered this, but not in that. One thing you could do if you're someone who likes to go live is do like a series of lives with lots of different local businesses. So where we've talked in the past, it's only 5 minutes ago, in this podcast about doing case studies, or earlier we were talking about highlighting certain businesses, you can do that live, like have a live series where you interview people locally, you talk obviously about marketing, but also other stuff that's of interest. You can offer social media tips. It's an opportunity for that business to promote themselves. And then that content can be repurposed. That could be repurposed into the blog that we talked about earlier. It could be repurposed into other content. It could be repurposed into carousels, to reels. You can do everything with it.
It could even be like a local social media managers podcast for local businesses in your local area.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant.
The world is your oyster.
Totally.
I think some kind of local, like we've said, local live series, but it obviously not everybody wants to go live anymore on platforms, and that's fine. But having something that highlights and it's these businesses and yourself is well worth it, which is probably why we've repeated it multiple times.
Love it. I think another good one would be to be very specific in your lead magnets, make them localized. Or a low ticket product, make it really localized. So instead of it just being a lead magnet that's like social media tips for whatever kind of business, again, you're very specific about what kind of business and where they are. So like I said at the beginning of the podcast, where it's, help West Sussex based businesses fill their gyms, the 5 reels that West Sussex gym owners should be creating, whatever. So it's very specific about who it's for, where they are, and what they're going to get out of it. And that could be a great lead magnet for local businesses.
Well, a large majority of what we've included in this podcast could be, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Just to obviously put it in your own words.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, turn this podcast into a little training for your local businesses. Yeah. Jobs are good in.
Yeah.
Love that idea. Okay. Yeah. Let us know if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it. So good lead magnet, be clear, or low ticket product. Be clear on that. It's specifically for that local business. Okay, the last one. Number 12.
Are you worn out from this?
I am.
Feels like we've had a lot. This list has been long.
I feel like I've run a marathon.
Need to lie down.
I know, yeah. So running local lead generation ads.
Oh, I can feel people falling off their chairs now. I can't afford it.
Oh, come on, you can. You can. Think of the return on investment. If you're just spending a couple of quid a day and getting a couple of leads, and then someone hires you on £1,000 a month, that was well worth spending £4 on.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no guarantees, please. That's my disclaimer.
But I think people always think they've got to spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, and I think it's important to know you don't have to.
Yeah, we can get leads easily for about £1, maybe £2, depending on what the offer is. So, but yeah, if you do some local targeted ads, don't make them spammy and look like the Yellow Pages, because they won't work. But do some good ads.
And think back to what we were saying about content earlier with the localized photos, the calling out the local businesses in your copy. All of that stuff is related to ads.
Yeah. But try and have it with a bit of personality rather than just,
totally.
No personality or like Yellow Pages. Do Yellow Pages still exist? But you know what I mean.
I think only online, but yeah.
Yeah, just have a bit of personality on there. I just think it's a great opportunity to, start building a list of people who are interested in getting social media help or support, or ads help and support. If the thought of that literally makes you want to vomit, or the thought of that is something that you really want to do, but you just don't know how, and you kind of think maybe now is the time to learn a little bit more about meta ads, you can come and join the waiting list for the Ads Manager Academy. The link is in our show notes, but you can head to thetwolauras.com/ads to join the waiting list for the Ads Manager Academy.
Yeah. So that was a nice long list. Hopefully you will use as many of these as possible to try and attract your local clients. And if you are like me and do have the ick about working with local people, a lot of these can be translated to working with anyone, anywhere. And, all of these things, if you are in Brighton and you don't want to work with local people, but you want to work with people in London, use all of these strategies for London.
Absolutely.
You can use the local strategies in a different area to where you live.
Yeah.
There we go. Excellent. Wow. Let us know how you get on with them. Drop into our DMs on Instagram. Let us know which of these strategies you're going to try and which of them work. We want to hear all about your new leads. And we'll be back same time, same place next week.
We will indeed.
Tune
Never
in.
fail.
Adios.